6 months ago, I let you guys know my first impressions of New Zealand after spending 6 weeks in Auckland. Don't judge me too much. But now we've experienced quite a bit more. If you've been following us on our journey, welcome back. And if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. We're doing some pretty fun stuff. In this video, I'm going to be touching on all the same topics as I did before, probably adding in a little bit more. Here's my 8-month impressions of New Zealand. My God, this does not get old. This is our 4th time in Dunedin. We've seen it in the fall, in the winter, and now in the spring. Mount Cargill Lookout, definitely worth it. Weather. I think we need to talk about what just happened over the last few months, because this was easily the best winter I've ever had in my life. Yeah, you're in New Zealand, but oh my God, like, you can actually do things here. In Canada, it seems like you're stuck inside for like damn near 6 months. But here, we got to experience so many things like Milford Sound, Delphi Sound, Queenstown twice, Arrowtown, Dunedin twice, Wellington, Slope Point, Bluff, Invercargill, Mount Cook. There's so many things you can do here in the winter, and that is just so awesome. I mean, there's definitely cold mornings, cold evenings. It gets chilly. It's not all sun, and there's a lot of rainy days. But I mean, just in general, if you dress appropriately, you're still able to get outside and do a lot of really cool things. Now, in terms of weather impact, I mean, hanging out in the North Island, you definitely saw a lot of flood damage. Same the aftermath of Cyclone Gabrielle. Really eye-opening, to say the least. But then coming down to the South Island and seeing the impact from earthquakes, like specifically Kaikoura and Christchurch, holy smokes, this is just a whole different world to me. We were walking around the Kaikoura seal colony, and a local there was just, you know, being super friendly, saying, hey, did you know, before the earthquake in, I think it was 2017 that happened there, none of this rock was here. Like it shot up from the ground. After the earthquake, the whole area was just really cut off. A lot of the roads were damaged, and it took just quite a few years to get things back to normal. And then Christchurch, oh my God. Just seeing so many things still in construction in Christchurch. Like, that earthquake was 12 years ago. Definitely takes time rebuilding things. It's crazy to me. It's a lot. In Canada, obviously, we have forest fires, tornadoes, there's flooding, but the monumental earthquakes are just something else. Road trips. Talking about the food, I mentioned this earlier, I'm still a massive fan of pies. Every time we're on a road trip, you know, grabbing a cup of coffee, a flat white, and a pie to go is just the absolute best. Then you find a nice spot on the side of the road to enjoy your pie with a nice view. So we were just down in Dunedin for this craft beer and food festival, and I thought I'd make this video on the way home, hit up all these cool spots in the South Island. But it's been raining for like the last 7 hours. But now we're at this beautiful waterfall. There's no one around. It's just a really nice way to finish off this drive. We're getting pretty close to home. But I want to talk about the people, because I've had a lot more interactions with locals, white people, Maori people, foreigners, a lot of Europeans, a lot of South Africans. People have just been really nice. A lot of people are just very genuinely happy to be here, which is really cool. I don't want to generalize everyone, but I think that the Kiwis here are quite soft-spoken people, not very confrontational unless you're on the road. Honestly, it feels like a lot of people have traveled to Canada, especially Western Canada, talking to people about Vancouver, Banff, Calgary, Edmonton, some people recently even Saskatchewan. So it's really neat to get into those conversations and compare Canada to New Zealand with Kiwi. Just talk about how flat certain parts of Canada are and how hilly a lot of New Zealand is, and just a lot of really great conversations that are just sparked from travel. So I cannot get enough of that. Super cool falls. Really like it. 5 minutes from the parking lot. Love that. The sun did not last long. Culture. In terms of culture, the British colonial influence is by far the most dominant, which is probably why it's been such an easy transition to go between Canada and New Zealand. But the Maori culture in history here has been extremely fascinating. We've been able to educate ourselves through a lot of the museums, Auckland, Wellington, especially Te Papa in Wellington. And if you've seen my Wellington vlog, you know how much I love that museum. The Te Reo Maori channel, that's been really interesting. We've seen a lot of really cool documentaries on there, and really just seeing the Black Ferns rugby match, the All Blacks match, but all the cultural significance around that. It's just been, you know, really cool to see. Last week, the national primary Kapa Haka was held in Nelson last week. So we were out and we were at this restaurant sitting beside probably 60 students that were all there for the Kapa Haka. There's a moment where all the boys started singing, all the girls started singing, and then they all started singing together. There was a little bit of dance in there, and honestly, it was super beautiful. I get the feeling, or I can feel a little bit more of the divide with what sounds like more Maori culture being introduced to a dominantly white society here. I've heard a lot of opinions on it. I personally think it's great. I think a lot of countries can take note of what's happening, especially Canada. I think the more that you travel around here, read a lot of the infographics that are available throughout different hikes, and start to learn. I don't know, it sounds kind of cheesy, but you do feel a lot more connected to the land here. A lot of you guys have highly suggested trying hangi, traditional Maori feast from the sounds of it. I've heard nothing but amazing things from pretty much everyone across the board. Yet to try it, yet to really have an opportunity to try it, but it's still on the list. Still on the list. Talking about the bugs, I feel like a lot of people say the same thing. It's not like Australia where there's so many different things that can kill you, but the sandflies can be hell. And I guess most of our travels have really been fall, winter, and spring now, so we haven't really had a whole lot of interaction with these sandflies aside from Milford Sound. That was pretty bad. Just walking around there for 20 minutes before we got on the cruise ship, they were just trying to get into your eyes and up your nose, and oh, they were all over you. It was just, whew, that was bad. I think we're gonna go to quite a few spots that are known for horrible sandflies, but I mean, you can't let that stop you. So, more on that later. The roads. If you don't already know and you're traveling to New Zealand, let people pass. First day driving on the South Island, we're going through some windy roads. I think I'm doing about 70K in a 100 zone. I'm like, okay, I'm like a little out of my comfort zone. I got two people right behind me. I found an opportunity to pull over. They blew past me and honked their horn. And I was like, okay, wow, I just let you go. Thanks for that. Turns out that's their way of saying thank you. Maybe it was just an aggressive horn. But now I can say, like, we're getting pretty comfortable on these roads. They are narrow, windy. A lot of people said beware of the South Island roads. There's a lot of potholes and things like that. But I found that there is more on the North Island, to be honest with you. But it's really tough, especially when you're backed up behind someone driving down that highway into Queenstown, someone going like 50 in a 100 zone. It's windy, people aren't used to it. There's a lot to look at, but we're right behind them. Next thing you know, there's like 20, 25 cars behind us. Multiple opportunities for them to pull over. They didn't. Multiple signs saying just pull over. They didn't. We had to pass them in a kind of a narrow stretch. It wasn't, you know, we weren't in danger, but it wasn't like, do we really have to do this? Just pull over kind of thing. So after that incident, I've kind of been like, okay, I think I get it now. Comparing New Zealand to Canada is just, a lot of people here that I've talked to who have been to both have said that Canada is New Zealand on steroids. Their words, not mine. A lot of people say that the mountains are just so epic and monumental in comparison to New Zealand, where I've kind of felt that a little bit, but I mean, doing the Hooker Valley track over to Mount Cook and seeing, you know, New Zealand's tallest mountain right in front of you with a glacier and a lake in front was pretty eye-opening. Milford Sound, Doubtful Sound, all of that is just extremely unique and absolutely beautiful. Some of the beaches, especially in this area in Tasman, have just been so eye-opening. But Canada is just so goddamn big. Western part of the country, you have British Columbia, into Alberta you have the Canadian Rockies, and then just so many plains and flatland for forever. And then you get into Manitoba and Ontario and a lot of lakes, and then the East Coast, the Maritimes, which I haven't even really been to. So it's just so big, where New Zealand, you can travel all around the country, but without it taking 45 hours or whatever it is to get from one end to the other. There's a lot more to see in a smaller space. And the landscape throughout is just so diverse. I mean, we just drove to Dunedin and back in like a weekend, in like 3 days. I mean, we wouldn't normally do that even in Canada. That's like going from Calgary to Vancouver and back just for the weekend. Like, no one does that. We just seem to have an obsession with New Zealand beer and beer festivals. So yeah, I mean, all in all, I mean, the amount that you can see and the time that you do have here is just, there's so much. And it's all really awesome. Still feels like home a little bit. Just Hockey Night in Canada is on a Sunday afternoon. But those are my impressions. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week, where we showcase Dunedin Craft Beer and Food Festival. Cheers.